Hi, Siri. I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of PodUp with Matthews in the morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Matthews has a show every weekday. I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Gator baseball takes care of FAU last night, a win they needed. They'll get ready for Tennessee this weekend. Softball tonight in Tallahassee. Some really good playoff games last night. If you missed them, Knicks lose in overtime. The Sixers come back, and Milwaukee wins. And I can't remember who else the other game was. I'm looking out. Oh, the Magic lose by 1. So all those series are at 3-2. And we'll have more games tonight. We're going to be joined by Kevin Brockway today, talk a little Gator hoops and some other stuff. And then we'll have Heath Cline from the Chuck Oliver Show, talk a little bit of everything. Andy says Sean Kelly had a great call last night on the Sixers-Knicks game. Bet it was a good one to call. Let me get to a couple of things that came in overnight. This came from K-Swiss. He says, Shane, the fact that you said that there's some calls that Lane has made in game time decisions that has blown your mind really blows my mind. There's calls that Napier has made that has blown my mind in every single game he's coached at UF. I think what you misunderstood me. I'm not questioning play calling because people can question play calling all the time, whether it works or not. What I'm talking about from Lane, and I like Lane, you should never, ever go for it inside your own 20-yard line. Lane has done that multiple times. That's just stupid football. When you have an opportunity to kick a field goal to take the lead late in the game, you do that. He doesn't and loses games. Those are the decisions. I'm not talking about play call. I'm talking about specific situational football that has gotten him in trouble. And here we got Kevin on. Real quick, let me get this text on the Titan of our text line. It's from Roger in Leesburg, Virginia. He says, I want to give a shout out to Ben Sassett and UF for doing the right thing. Look, we don't talk politics or world affairs on here, but what's going on in this country is just absolutely unbelievable. George Washington University, Columbia, what's happening at UCLA, these people taking over buildings. What the hell's going on with it? What is wrong with people? We need to send the National Guard in and clean those damn people out. I'm sorry. That's how I feel about it. I think it's totally ridiculous because I've never been a protester. I don't understand it, but there's not a damn thing protesting is going to do. I mean, I don't know what they can possibly do. So that's my 2 cents. These people are completely crazy. And thank God it's really not happening in any of the SEC schools, quite honestly. Let's go to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're joined by the Gainesville Suns, Kevin Brockway. Good morning, Kevin. How you doing, buddy? I think you're on mute. You got to unmute yourself, Kevin.
Okay, have I been unmuted or no?
You're unmuted, my man. How are you?
All right. Good morning. How are you, Shane?
I'm good. I just I had to read this text. We've had multiple texts, but I read the one from Roger in Leesburg, Virginia. But what the hell's going on in this country is just stupidity, in my opinion. People may believe otherwise, but God, it is ridiculous how these people are overtaking buildings and stuff. They need to go in there and lock every one of them up. Lock them up. All right.
I think it's a fine line, Shane. I don't agree with taking over buildings or being disrespectful to police officers or people, UPD or people that are being there. Right. I do think though that I saw one of the terms was disrupting academic activity, and I don't know, is protesting itself disrupting academic activities, being loud in front of a classroom? So I wonder if sometimes UPD has a little latitude in arrest, but at the same time, yeah, I don't condone taking over buildings or spitting on
Yeah,
spitting on cops or whatever, which
or
I saw
threatening
was
others.
some of what
The
happened
others.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's going on at UCLA is totally ridiculous. But like I said, I don't get into world affairs because there's not a damn thing any of us can do. I do not understand the protesting. If you want to protest and keep it civil, that's fine. I still don't know what the hell you're going to get accomplished. Uh, but whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a sports talk show, so here we go.
Sure. Of course.
Um, let's talk Gator basketball. The guys that they have added. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of our fan base is not familiar with them because they weren't familiar with the guys that Ty brought in last year. But your thoughts on the additions? Do you like them?
I really like Elijah Martin. I think I've talked about Elijah Martin before on the show at FAU. I think he is of all the guys on Dusty's team. I think he was the best NBA prospect. Some people say John L. Davis, but I just really like and maybe Elijah Martin's size at 6'2", but I do think that that's one of the reasons why he's gonna play on the ball at Florida, or why he wants to. I think is to kind of show that he could do it at the next level. Oh, and by the way, Jalen Brunson is 6'2" also, and he's having a pretty good playoffs with the Knicks. But there are different people that are built. He's 6'2" and he's built like an SEC running back. He's 215 pounds, Shane. I mean, he is a big kid, and he plays well on both ends. And as we know, last year, probably the one weakness for Florida was perimeter defense. This guy's going to guard on the ball pretty well, and I think that definitely will play well. Next season in the SEC, where you have a lot of guys that can break down defenses. You have a big 6'2", 215-pound guy that can play really good on the ball defense. I think that's a vital asset.
Yeah. Andy wants to know who's going to be the point guard next year.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it could be Elijah. It could be Walter Clayton. I'm not sold on Walter as a point. I think we saw that early in the season, that he does turn it over a lot. Obviously, if Walter comes back, or even Denzel Aberdeen. Torian Green is very high on Denzel Aberdeen. I mean, he really thinks that this is, I think he's an example of a developmental player, a guy that's been in the system for 2 years, has kind of bided his time, waited his turn. And we saw in the Texas A&M game, him kind of, the second Texas A&M game in the SEC tournament, him kind of flourish as that guy that can, and I think another good offseason from him will be something that will be worth watching. But if he has another good offseason, I think he'll play. I think it's kind of been a hybrid. Last year they had a very good point guard in Zion Paul, a true on the ball guy. But I think this year you could see multiple people kind of man that spot, and the trend is positionless anyway. It has been for a number of years, both in the NBA and college.
When do we find out about when if the NBA kids that are in the draft, if they decide to come back? If people aren't aware of that, it's Will Richard and Walter Clayton Jr. both submitted their name to the draft, I believe, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yes. So it is May 29th. Okay, and I have been corrected on that because there's if you look on the NBA's website, it says June 16th, but the NCAA created a different deadline, and I think they did that because a lot of workouts start in early June, and coaches want to know who they have, going in, and not having to worry. And as we know, the transfer portal is passed too. So May 29th is the date. It's kind of right after or not far from the NBA Combine, which will give, I think, players get a lot more feedback then during that process, and also go to off-season workouts, a lot of these off-season workouts that teams host that they will go to. So I think that basically at that time, you get a lot more feedback and information about where you really stand.
What do you think is going to happen with those two?
I think they're going to come back. Yeah. I would be shocked. Of the two, I would say, maybe Walter Clayton, could keep his name in, but even Walter at 6'2", I don't know if he quite has the build, at 6'2" to be an NBA guy. But he does have dynamic scoring ability. Let's put it that way. And I don't know, what they're going to think or how they're going to evaluate him defensively, which was a weakness of Walter, and turning the ball over a little bit. But I think that I think he'll be back, and I think Will Richard will probably be back as well.
Mark's question on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing: is the big man that broke his leg going to make a full recovery, or is it career ending? If people aren't aware, I believe he is redshirting, correct?
Yes, Todd pretty much said, last week that he is going to redshirt. He's probably going to redshirt, and it gives him a little more pressure. But I think that's why they got Sam Alexis and Ruben Chanelu, two guys that two big guys to go with Alex Condon and Thomas Houck. You have that 4-player post rotation, and when you look back on that NCAA tournament game, that really hurt the most, because what ended up happening was when you have 3 post players instead of 4, Tyree Samuel gets in foul trouble. You play a little more tentative on defense around the rim. Colorado scores 102 points as a result. You have a 4th guy there. I think that makes a huge difference in terms of how aggressive you play. You're a little less fearful of foul trouble, and I think that's what Todd wants. Todd wants 4 scholarship above average post guys, and that's what he has. That's what he had last year until Logden got hurt, and then it was cut by 1, and I think that really hurt him. And Micah was probably their best guy altering at the rim. I mean, Condon had the best shot block numbers, but Micah with his length was the best at altering on the rim, and he's a guy. But you give him a full year, a chance to recover, and as Todd says, hopefully he'll come back. His following year of eligibility, and really be rested and be ready for a big season.
How many available spots, scholarships do we have right now?
Well, I saw it was 2, and then I saw a report that Julian Rishwain, I think, entered the portal, so it might be 3 now. So there is a chance to get another point guard, a true point guard, if that's the direction they want to go. But when we talked to Todd last week about additions, he said that, basically we're kind of in a good spot, and we'll kind of look at the lay of the land now. I think they're pretty much done in their phase 1, pretty much transfer evaluations, and I think they're kind of in wait and see mode with Walter and with Will. And if one of those 2 goes, then I would expect that they would probably go after another guard in early June. But who knows what's going to be available at that time? And they've got a sophomore point guard in Kajas Kablukas, who they're high on for the future as well. He's another guy too. If he has a good offseason, then maybe he gets in the mix the way Denzel Aberdeen did this past year. So
Chris from Cottondale on the Titan More text line says, I think they're going to run a 2-guard lineup where either guard can lead and initiate the offense. They did it some last year with Pullen and Clayton early in the season, with Pullen being the primary in crunch time and later in the season. Yeah, I mean, it's his offense, it's all about the guards. I mean, he's going to have multiple guards, handle the ball, but you got to have one primary guy, and that was Pullen last year. We'll see who it'll be this year. We got a text on the Titan More text line from George. It's extremely long here. I'm going to kind of paraphrase. It's regarding where Todd Golden is after year 2 through the NIL recruiting. We've seen what Alabama has done this past year, going to the Final Four. They lost a lot of guys off that team, but they brought in supposedly a really good class. And then Calipari, I think, just got a kid. They paid him over $1 million, the center, I believe, to go to Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, long story short, his question is, where, in your opinion, Kevin, does Florida rank with the NIL and basketball compared to the other SEC schools?
Yeah, I would probably say middle of the pack. They did spend, last year, obviously, to get Clayton and Will Richard back, and I'm sure they're going to spend a little bit more, to get Kugel and Will Richard back, and this year I'm sure they're going to spend a little bit for Clayton, and so I think that there's money there. I mean, is it as big as some of the blue bloods like Arkansas and Kentucky? No, it's just not going to be that way, because of the fact that more money at those schools is probably earmarked to basketball than it's Florida. So you just have to be smart. You just have to be creative. It's always been that way, even probably in the under the table days. And it's also about developing guys. There are a lot of ways to skin a cat. Let's put it that way. And I think for Florida, for their route is, development, getting old and staying old, building some depth where you have a solid 8 or 9 guy rotation. The best Florida teams have done that, over the years, have done that. I mean, Chandler Parsons was maybe a 3-star recruit, borderline 4-star coming out of high school, and he developed into an all SEC player of the year. Same thing with Scotty Wilbekin, local kid, right? So if you're Florida, that's how you do it. You have to be able to get Al Horford was maybe a top 50 recruit. Corey Green was not even in the top 100. Joakim Noah was kind of a late bloomer. So that's how you do it if you're Florida. You're not going to do it with the big names or the big splash transfers.
Yeah. Matt asked on Facebook Live regarding my Lane comments. Do you think Lane would do well at UF? I do. I like Lane. I think he's a really good football coach. There's 2 coaches out there in college football that remind me of Coach Spurrier from just their swaggerness. If that's a word. I don't know. Is swaggerness a word? It's Jamie Chadwell who's now at Liberty, and it's Lane. I was referring to some of the decision making that Lane makes at times during games.
Let me pose this question to you, because we saw a little bit of this with Mullen. How would Lane's big personality jibe with the UF's administration, do you think?
Well, I think that's the that's the big question, because Lane's out there. He's pretty much the only Power 5 coach that I can think of that is constantly on Twitter. I just don't know how that would rub people. But if you win games, I guess that, there's no pressure at Ole Miss. I think people don't realize that. What he's done there, he's exceeded expectations. They're comfortable with him. He's comfortable with the situation. But he's a heck of a football coach. Ted says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mello, they need to change the portal rules. Well, that ain't happening, because now I think you can just keep transferring as much as you want. He says DeMarcus Bowman will not prosper by going to a 4 school. I don't know where he's going, but there's a reason he's at his 4 school. Maybe he's not as highly touted, or maybe he's not as good as he was touted. I go back to what I mentioned yesterday. If people missed the show yesterday, go Google. I don't know how you Google it, but go to the NFL draft, Google Saban speaking. He talked about all developing players. You can develop them as much as you want, but if they don't have athletic instincts, they're not going to be great players. You can't teach those things. And that could be his issue. That's what I think. Somebody has a question on here for you about Riley Kugel going to Kansas. I think Riley Kugel has all that ability, but I think he lacks the athletic instincts to be a great player.
Yeah, no, Riley is a terrific athlete. That I think, the skill level there is maybe not there. I don't necessarily, I think that can be honed over time. I think that's an experience thing, Shane. Like when you talk about athletic experience, I think it's athletic instincts. I think you can get that just through experience over the years. I think you can get that, through time, but you have to be patient, and the player has to be patient too, right? The player, I think so many of these people nowadays in the transfer portal era, they think, oh, I have to play right away, to be successful, instead of biding their time and waiting. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're not, not everyone's a Brad Beal. Not everyone's going to come in and, be a one and done type freshman talent. I mean, sometimes it takes time. And I gave you some examples earlier, like guys like Scotty Wilbekin and Chandler Parsons, who bided their time and waited and developed. I think Denzel Aberdeen is going to be that kind of kid that's really, he's sticking with the system. He's kind of a throwback that by his senior year, I think he's going to be pretty good. So I think there's something to be said for that. And for the DeMarcus Bowmans of the world, I kind of get it, maybe, you get the opportunity to play, and maybe football is a little different than basketball in that regard. But I still think there are guys that if you bide your time and you wait, you're going to, be able to get your opportunity and play.
Joseph says former 5-star Corey Collier is transferring to FAMU. I think he was here. He went somewhere else, and now he's transferring to FAMU. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the recruitniks, they miss on these guys, and it just doesn't pan out. If Corey Collier, I believe he came here for a year. If Corey Collier was still here, people would be blaming our coaches for not developing him. He's been to multiple schools, just like DeMarcus Bowman. So I'm a big believer coaches can only develop you to a certain point. Then it is what it is. You know, Billy Donovan had multiple players that were highly recruited that came through here that didn't pan out the way people thought. It ain't like Billy didn't develop them because Billy's a damn good coach. So that's just my
Well,
thoughts on
development,
that.
yeah, I think development too. The one thing you don't know, and the one thing someone like you would know, Shane, because you're in a locker room, that maybe other people in our athletes don't know is what kind of work do you put in, right? Like how hard do you work at it to develop, right? And
Right.
I think Rick Pitino had a line that he said, just because you go to the library doesn't mean that you're studying necessarily. You'd say that you're putting in a lot of time, but how you're utilizing that time. And I think that's another aspect to it too. It's some of it's on the kid. The kids, like I said, you gotta work, and that's something that kids will never admit to, or the measure. They put something on Instagram that looks like a big time workout, but really how much are they doing, and really how much is it helping?
And you're exactly right about that. But also, you can work your ass off, and you still can't get any better because you have reached your potential
Yes.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And then people sometimes don't understand that. They're talking about Camardi McLean. I think he went to Colorado. He has no school right now. A highly recruited kid that's looking for a school. Real quick, we have one here. Oh, Thunderclap on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, Shane, how about Jed Fish back at UF? I don't. That will not happen. In my opinion, I like Jed. I don't see it happening. Look, Billy Napier's our coach. He ain't going anywhere, people. He ain't going anywhere. Get behind him. Like I said, embrace the schedule. Is it hard? Yeah. But we're facing like 5 or 6 new quarterbacks, 3 or 4 new head coaches. This is the best team that he will have had since he's been here.
Shane, I'm doing a magazine preview. I looked this up. They have 16 returning starters, 16, including the kicker and the punter, but 14 on both sides of the ball. This is a team that's going to be a little bit more experienced, a little more physically mature, and I think that could possibly play well in the SEC. When you look around and you look at, and I think I saw another stat about returning production, and Florida is up there in the SEC. I think they have like the third or the fourth most. So you're starting to see things. You're starting to see a more experienced team. Now, will that translate to wins and losses against the schedule? We'll see. But I do think things are starting to turn from an experience standpoint on this roster, that could potentially play well. Again, if the coaches develop them and they don't have limited athletic potential, as you've mentioned also.
Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. We haven't had great players. I mean, the draft, look, everybody's goal is to play in the National Football League. Only a handful of people get to do it. We didn't even have guys have opportunities. Think about that. They didn't have opportunities to go play at the next level.
Yeah.
That talent will get better.
I will say this in the defense, though, that guys like Jason Marshall could have gone out, Mertz could have gone out. Then you would have probably had a few more. I think
those guys are going to play.
Some people, yeah. And I think there's
those
something
guys
said
have
for the fact that they did come back, that it's helped. Yeah, sorry.
We got a text here. Want to thank all the Gator Nation. About 180 fans showed up at Spurs yesterday to get a book and picture of Patrick Young. I don't know. Did you get by there yesterday, Kevin, to see Patrick?
No, I heard he was at the baseball game too, and yeah, Patrick's just he's such a great kid, and he was really good with me with his time. I don't know if you saw, but I did a story earlier this month on the Final Four. The 10, he's part of the 10-year reunion. I talked to him. I talked to Scotty, who was inducted in the Hall of Fame, and I talked to Will Uget, and they were just all very appreciative. You realize that Mark Daignault was on that staff, and Scotty really credited him for helping him develop as a player. He's kind of the assistant to the head coach and went over a lot of video with Scotty, and now he's the NBA coach of the year in the Oklahoma City Thunder, into the playoffs, a playoff round victory. So it just goes to show you that, that era in terms of, guys that develop, and again, very talented coaches that came through Billy Donovan's system.
Kay Brown on YouTube, brought to you by Claude Palman, says sometimes players peak in high school. I see it all the time. It's true. I can't remember. I remember when my kid was growing up playing a little bit of travel baseball. You'd see these guys at like 12, 13 just dominating. And then those guys never played a lick in high school, because they were so much bigger and stronger, but They went backwards once they got into high school. So, all right, Kevin, you watched the NBA playoffs? Do you follow it?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Anything surprised you so far?
I thought the Knicks were going to be able to close out the Sixers last night. That was a little disappointing, and the Magic series, certainly, I expected LeBron to be, I didn't think that the Lakers, I thought that was a bad matchup with Denver, and that turned out to be, true. But I think that we've got some interesting series ahead too. It's going to be pretty fascinating to see, and OKC, nice young core, them in Minnesota. I think they kind of represent the future of the Western Conference and are going to challenge Denver and give them a nice little run there.
Yeah. Andy wants to know, Kevin, from your Indiana days, would you rather attend a Pacer playoff game or Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever opener?
That's a good question. Caitlin Clark will be she'll be fascinating to watch. I still go with the Pacers playoff game, and Rick Carlisle has done a really nice job. Halliburton is a really nice player. It's amazing when you look at the lineage of the Pacers. They can't attract free agents there, so they have to do it through trades. So you go back to they got Oladipo and Detlef Schrempf for Paul George. Then you flip Detlef Schrempf for, Domantas Sabonis. Excuse me, I'm going way back there. You flip Domantas Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton, and he's now their guy, and has been just terrific in leading the Pacers in the playoffs.
Alan, this is interesting on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel. Ironically, the NIL will allow some marginally top tier players to remain in college and delay turning pro in all three major sports. Examples are Mertz and Marshall in football, as you mentioned. Is this true or false? Well, yes and no. I mean, Jason Marshall Jr., I think, is an NFL player. Did he have a great year last year? No. But maybe he comes back and has a much better year because, again, playing defensive back, your front seven has to help you out, and we have been god awful there. I think we're better there this year. Mertz is making a lot of money. There's no question about it. More than he will make as a NFL free agent rookie his first 3 years in the league. So it's smart for him to come back. Right, Kevin?
Oh, yeah, no question. And I think a guy like Jason Marshall, too, when he talked to us, he said he wanted to get his degree, too, which is kind of a noble thing because, he's going to be a 4-year guy by doing that, and set himself up for his future. And you're right, Shane. He had 10 pass breakups last year, but if you remember, dropped that pick 6 in the Kentucky game. Probably wants a few more interceptions on his ledger. That might help, or on his tape in terms of and come back next year. I think I did a way early 25 NFL draft. I think he's rated as a 12th best corner right now, but with a good senior year, I think he could, move his way up from that and help his stock. And look what happened to Ricky Pearsall. I mean, goes from he would have been a mid-round pick if he left earlier, and then he's a, first-round pick. So you just never know what can happen in a year if you put your mind to it, work hard, and have a good year.
Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical smoothie. When you eat better, you feel better. A few more minutes here with Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun. Text on the Titan Mark text line from Dan. He says, Kevin, do you think Billy Donovan likes coaching in the NBA?
I think he does. I think he likes what it's all about. I think he likes it better than college. I just think that the issue there, and I've heard from some people that I've talked to, is, are the Bulls all in? You know what I mean? Are they giving him everything he needs to be successful? And I think that's a big question. But there was an interesting story in The Athletic in that regard, and he's been a good soldier in that regard. He hasn't snapped back at management and stuff, and I think that's probably why he's still employed too. Is that he's kind of been a very patient and willing to have this play out. They've had a ton of injuries there too that have really hurt him. So I think his contract runs through 2026, and we'll see. And if he really didn't like it, I think he's probably had opportunities to come back. I'm sure Kentucky made some kind of back channel overture. I'm sure there have been other schools that have over the last couple of years, but he seems pretty content, in the NBA. And certainly that level of basketball. I think he enjoys. I don't know how he would handle the NIL here in college either.
Yeah.
He was frustrated back then with some of the things that were going on in recruiting when he left in 2015. I do think that would be tough to navigate as well.
Yeah. Kevin, good stuff as always. Appreciate your time. Let everybody know how they can follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, at Kevin Brockway G1 and Gatorsports.com.
Have a good day, my man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's Kevin Brockway. Does a tremendous job covering the Gators. We're going to take a quick time out. Come back. We'll be joined by Heath Cline from the Chuck Oliver Show. Get his thoughts on college football and a little bit of the NFL. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker Sporting Goods. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. We're going to go back to the Titan MRI hotline courtesy of Comfort Temp. And it's our man, Heath Cline, who's been hiding out up in Atlanta, Georgia. How you doing, Heath?
Hey, Shane, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Just wanted to get you on because first off, I know y'all talk tons of college football up there in Atlanta. I want to talk a little NFL. With you being in Atlanta, I want your thoughts on what the Falcons did.
Oh, man. How long you got? We've all kind of been processing it since Thursday, Shane. It is completely bizarre. And the thing that's unfortunate about it is that for Michael Penix and for Kirk Cousins, both of them, this should be a good thing to have signed with the Falcons or to have been drafted by the Falcons. But you put them together and it just doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't make sense. And all I can say is that if you look at it from the best possible perspective, you hope if you're the Falcons that Kirk Cousins and your relationship is not super damaged by this, and that he can still be effective as a player, stay healthy, do good work for the next 2 years, but maybe in those next 2 years, a game here, a game there, whether it be that sprained ankle that just keeps you out for a game, or hey, you win enough that you have a a game like the Chiefs did with Mahomes, that they could let him start at the end of his first year because there was no stakes involved. The playoffs were already set for the Chiefs. You hope that maybe Higgs can get on the field for a couple of games, get a little bit of development time, and then, Cousins, third year, maybe you keep him, maybe you don't. With the salary structure, you could move on in 3 if you wanted to. That's the best case scenario. And the idea that that's the best case, that you wasted 2 years of the 5 years of a rookie contract for salary cap purposes, and really 2.5 because the third year still has a lot of Cousins money if you move on from him. If that's the best case scenario, man, that's not very good at all. It's just really hard to understand what they are trying to accomplish here. I know what their rationale is, but it's hard to understand it.
Which out of all the quarterbacks taken in the first round, 6 of them, which I don't think some of them deserve to be in the first round. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you think going to have a good NFL career, Heath?
Well, you know how important it is, Shane, for a guy to go to the right spot. And so I liked Drake May as a prospect, but I like Drake May better now that he's in New England and you're going to have Jacoby Brissett there to kind of be that guy to smooth the way for him. The first year, it sure sounds like the things that were flaws with Drake May, they're going to give him time to work on and have a plan for how to mix him in, as opposed to just throwing him out there right away. But if Caleb Williams doesn't work, Shane, then I think the Bears just kind of have to give up, right? I mean, at this point, when you look at what they've got him surrounded with Fields, you did so many things wrong. I'm not saying Fields would have worked out as a superstar. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. A lot of those guys in that 21 class have struggled. But to have not put better weapons around him, to have fired the coach after year one, and to have clearly had a head coach that didn't want to play him year one, you just couldn't have made it much worse for him. And so the fact that you have now Williams coming in with a better offensive line, you add another quality receiver as a young guy in Odunze, but you also add a veteran in Allen. DJ Moore's already a really nice player. I mean, you know better than anybody, Shane, there are a lot of challenges to trying to play quarterback at Soldier Field, especially later in the year, but you've given him the best possible resources to do it. If he doesn't make it, I give up. I'm curious what you think about Daniels, actually, because I was never quite as sold on Daniels as some people are. I maybe it's because I watched him play at Arizona State. I see the growth, but I also know how good that LSU receiving talent was. That's a guy that some people are way more enthusiastic about than I would have been. How'd you feel about him?
Well, I got to see him break an NCAA record in person, doing the play by the color analyst when he broke the record against the Gators for rushing and passing in one game. I'm with you. When I saw him play at Arizona State, and then I want to say it was his first game against Florida State 2 years ago, he was horrible. I mean, he couldn't complete anything. And then something changed. I think with his running ability, I think he's pretty accurate. I think he has a chance. I compare him to Lamar Jackson because I think he's that kind of runner. I think he's a little bit better thrower than Lamar. And then Caleb Williams, everybody's comparing him to, which is not fair, to Mahomes. So I wanted to ask you. So I didn't really answer your question, Heath. But Bo Nix and both Spencer Rattler, SEC guys. Spencer Rattler, we know, was highly, highly recruited when he went to Oklahoma. Got kind of beat out by Caleb Williams, transferred, had some good times, had some bad times at South Carolina. But I can't get the Bo Nix Auburn out of my head. And I know he played well at Oregon, but I want your thoughts on those two guys.
Well, it's funny you say that, Shane, because I'm with you. I think a lot of people in SEC country are saying, okay, we know that Bo Nix was better at Oregon. We know, though, also that he had more throws either at or behind the line of scrimmage by far than any other quarterback in this draft. The biggest thing for Bo Nix, though, and this is where the Falcons have the biggest problem here, is that there is nobody here with credibility. For better or worse, Sean Payton has credibility on offense that if you're a Bronco fan or if you're somebody who's just a skeptic about Bo Nix, and look, Sean Payton really believes that he can do this, and he even found a way to make Taysom Hill, who was not considered really an NFL prospect, into somebody who did some interesting things. And so if he believes in Bo Nix, then maybe he's right. He's going to get a level of benefit of the doubt just by virtue of having Sean Payton. Whereas here, you got a guy and a general manager who has never developed a quarterback. He's never been a general manager before here and was with the Saints, which the Saints do not develop young quarterbacks. They haven't drafted a first-round quarterback in decades, and I don't think anybody calls Drew Brees a developed young quarterback for them. So, Taysom Hill is probably the closest thing they have to a young quarterback they've developed in decades. So you got a GM with no background developing a quarterback, a head coach who the first time he was a head coach failed miserably and who may have grown and become better, but was doing it mostly as a defensive coach. So you don't say he knows how to bring along a quarterback. And you've got an offensive coordinator who may be great, but who is new. So you don't know if he knows how to bring along a young quarterback. So when you don't have that credibility, I think it makes it a lot harder that this plan works, or that frankly, you've got the right people, whether it's Penix or if they drafted McCarthy or somebody else. It's harder to know you have confidence that these guys could do it. That's where I think in the case of Nix, I'm with you. I never viewed Bo Nix as anything close to a 12th pick in the draft kind of quarterback. But, and you know who it kind of reminds me of? I'm not saying he's the same player, but you remember when guys like Christian Ponder went, I think at pick 11, when Cade McNown went at about pick 11, where's just that feeling, we got to get somebody. And so you draft a guy that the physical tools didn't really say, or the on-field success didn't really say was an 11th or 12th pick. It sure feels like one of those kind of things. But because it's Sean Payton, he'll get benefit of the doubt. But I'm with you. Watching him, there was a game at South Carolina that Auburn lost to Will Muschamp's guys that he had enough time for 2 or 3 plays for the end zone, and he burned all of it by just running around in circles and then threw an incompletion. I said, I can't believe I just watched this. Like, he has no clock in his head at all. So the idea that from that, he's in the 12th pick in the draft, I'm with you. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Rattler, Shane, there was that report from Ian Rappaport claiming that NFL coaches basically, or that GMs were still holding that reality show, that QB1 thing he did when he was in high school against him. I hope that is not true. I spoke with somebody who is really well connected in the NFL who said he doesn't think it's true, that maybe Rappaport heard it from one team and kind of generalized it, but that he doesn't think everybody held it against him like that. I sure hope that's true, because I have not heard one word bad about Rattler from over in Columbia, not on the record or off the record. Everybody said he handled himself the way you would want a guy to, even in a bad situation when the season's not going the way you want, that he didn't lose faith and say, oh, you guys are hurting my draft stock, or, become any kind of problem. And I hope for him, for better or worse, he's getting judged on what they think he is as a prospect on the field. There's some things to love there, the arm, the touch, but obviously he's also 6'1". That's not ideal height, although it was good enough for Williams. But it's not ideal height. He doesn't use his legs as a weapon the way that some guys do, the way that teams get excited about. He can move, but I don't think he's viewed as you'll make plays with his legs. He's not always great at reading defenses. I mean, I understand why he wasn't necessarily a first-round prospect. I really thought he was going to go 3rd round, and I sure hope he didn't drop to 5th over that. That's embarrassing if it did.
I agree. Radware is a family-owned business that prides itself in excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. A few more minutes here with Heath Cline. Heath, let's switch gears to college football. That's what you guys talk daily. When you look at the SEC, we're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas, obviously. Let's talk Gators, because that's pretty much everybody wants to know what your thoughts are on the Gators. We know it's been disappointing. I think it's the best roster Billy's had. A lot of guys are coming back. The schedule's hard, but it's the SEC. Embrace the damn schedule and go play. Just your thoughts leading up to this season on May 1st. What are your thoughts of the Gators?
I mean, I can't say that I'm super optimistic, and a lot of it just goes back to the issue with the schedule. I mean, this schedule is just completely bananas. And unfortunately, there's just so much pressure on that first game of the year. If you lose to Miami, you just kind of look at the rest of the schedule. If you lose any of these early games, then immediately people start doing the math and they're going to say, the season's screwed. Now, whether that's fair or not, when you've got that stretch at the end of the year, beginning with Georgia, people are going to basically treat it like the minute that you suffer a second loss, you've already missed the bowl, the season's a wreck. And when your first game is Miami, you could win that, certainly. But if you don't, I just feel like it's going to poison everybody so fast. But we're talking earlier about things you can't get out of your head, Shane. The thing that concerns me a lot is what I saw at the start of that year last year against Utah. It's one thing to lose a game. Utah's a respectable program. That's not an easy place to play. They just look so poorly prepared. They just look like they were a mess. And they're, the year before, obviously they beat Utah. So it's not that Napier can't get a team ready to play, but whatever happened last year that had them so off kilter, I just wonder if they get off to a slow start again and they lose to the Canes. Obviously, you've got a couple of games there with Samford and Mississippi State you feel pretty good about, but an A&M team that is going to have talent, and I think Elko is going to be a pretty good coach for them. Yeah, if you don't get through that stretch, nothing worse than 3-1 and maybe 4-0, I just think you're in a really bad place. And Shane, that UCF game concerns me for Florida a lot. You look at KJ Jefferson, experienced quarterback. Malzahn is adding more talent out of the portal. It appears that being in the Big 12 has allowed them to upgrade the kind of guys that they can get out of the portal. I mean, they've gotten kids from Ohio State, from Miami to rush the passer. They got another DB coming from somewhere I can't remember off the top of my head who's a big deal prospect. But I just look at this schedule. Florida could be better. Florida could be solid and still be like a 4 or 5 win team against this schedule.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think they'll be favored in the first 5 games, and I think they need to win all 5, quite honestly. Is there a sleeper, in your opinion, in the SEC that people may not be talking about right now?
No one ever talks much about Kentucky, right? Even when you talk
Doring
about
does.
Like,
Doring picks them to win the East every year.
That's a good point. Doring loves Kentucky. In general, most people don't talk about Kentucky, and I think this year, maybe because last year was a little disappointing, I think maybe people have calmed down on the idea of, oh, well, you just get the quarterback come in, and the problem was that Scangarello was not really a great replacement for Cohen. Last year was, oh, Cohen's back, and they got a different transfer quarterback, so everything's going to be awesome. And Devin Leary didn't have a great year, and Cohen obviously leaves and takes the job in Tampa Bay. And so I don't know that people are thinking about Bush Hamdan and Brock Vandegrift the same way that they were last year. But Vandegrift, I mean, he's a talented guy, and we haven't seen much of him on the field, but it's not like at Georgia they didn't think Brock Vandegrift could play. It's just they have recruited well enough. He didn't find a spot there, but you get him out on the field, and Hamdan at least has a reasonably good reputation. I think Kentucky might be more dangerous than people believe that they are. Now, does that mean, look out here, Atlanta, here they come? I'm not sure they're that level of team, but I think they're probably being underestimated at least a little bit right now compared to what they're going to be.
What do you think? Just your thoughts briefly on Texas. Obviously, we know they had a tremendous year last year, but with OU and Texas coming in the SEC, they're going to fit in just fine, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm real interested to see about how they handle an SEC level schedule, not because there is any one game that they don't have the talent for, because I'm with you. They certainly have the talent to play every week. But if you look at Sarkisian in his history, he's never had a consistent week in, week out winning program. He's just not. There'll always be some games where they just kind of lay an egg. And you can get away with that a lot more in the Big 12 when you have an overwhelming talent edge against basically everybody you see except for Oklahoma. Maybe in a given year there's another team that's a little closer than usual, but you can get away with that more often in that conference. When Texas steps on the field in the SEC, okay, Mississippi State, for example, they're going to have more talent than Mississippi State, but it's not going to be the difference in talent between them and, say, Iowa State most years, that kind of thing. And so that's what I wonder about, Shane, is that last year was the first time with Sark that they overcame all their close calls. They found a way to still win those kind of games. Can they now build off of that and be more consistent this year and avoid the close calls? Because if you have the close calls against, we'll just say a UF, for example. Now, let's just say it's an 11 a.m. kickoff in Austin. Maybe the crowd isn't super amped up. UF's coming in. There's some excitement there, but maybe UF's not having a vintage UF year. And so maybe it's just, we're good. We got these guys. And you show up a little bit off, Florida's going to still have enough athletes. They can make your life real busy real fast. And that's the kind of thing I wonder about, is just combos where you have to go from Oklahoma to Georgia back to back, for example. What would be an example of that, Shane, you could think of for them in the Big 12 over the last few years for Sark? It would be Oklahoma and then Georgia right back to back. And those are the kind of things I just need to see. Can he keep those guys on an even keel and have them ready for every game? But athletically, if you ask me, could they win every game? Sure. No trouble believing that at all.
Yeah. All right. Last thing for you, kind of a two-part question here. Dan's question was, is there any chance the SEC championship game rotates out of Atlanta? I think they've signed, sealed, and said it's going to stay there, but I could be wrong. The other question is, Andy wants to know, do you still cover the Gamecocks? You don't. You now let everybody know that you're working with Chuck Oliver, right?
Yeah, I did that for a bunch of years, but yeah, August of last year came over to Atlanta. I work at a combination of 680 The Fan, and then also based out of 680 The Fan, we have the Chuck Oliver Show, which airs there in Gainesville on WRUF in the 2 to 4 window, I believe it is when it airs down there. So every day we do 2 hours of college football. Chuck's the main host, and then I chime in a few times per show and make sure we've got the show put together. And then like next week, for example, Chuck's out. So Monday through Thursday next week, I'll be hosting the show, that kind of thing. And I do a bunch of stuff at 682 this week, for example. Already did a show on Monday, and then Sunday I'm on from 10 to 2:10 for Cinco de Mayo on Sunday. So I just kind of pop up all over the place. But yeah, we still will talk the Gamecocks on Chuck's show, but yeah, not a primary thing for me anymore. As for the first part there, the SEC is going to be here at Atlanta for the foreseeable future. Nashville, with the new stadium that they're building, has made a bunch of noises that they're coming for every event they can get. They want the Super Bowl, they want the Final Four, you name it, they want it. And they hope that they can get the SEC championship away. I will be very surprised if that happens. Nashville is perfect for the basketball tournament, but it's not in the SEC's interest to move out of a much bigger market with big corporate partners here in Atlanta, just because Nashville's fun too. I would be very surprised if they ever got this event out of Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. It's the best sporting event I've ever been to, no matter who's playing in the game. I think it's better than Super Bowls. It's better than national championship games. There's nothing like pregame at the SEC championship. Heath, great stuff as always. Appreciate your time. Let everybody know how they can follow you on Twitter or X or whatever.
Heath Radio. It's still Twitter to me too. Heath Radio is the handle there. It's Heath Radio there, Heath Radio on Instagram. If for some reason you want to see my vacation pictures, it's up to you. But Heath Radio, anywhere you're going to find a social media account, if I'm on it, that's where it is. And yeah, Shane, it was fun, man. Always good catching up.
Yeah, appreciate your time, my man. Have a great weekend. That's Heath Cline. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Let's get to our Peachland Dental. JC's not here. He'll be back next week. He's on a phone business. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Go visit them at peachlanddental.com. They're going to be shooting about 30 under par this week at the Byron Nelson out in Texas. I'm going to make this simple. I'm going with my all South Korean team: Siwoo Kim, Sun Jae Im, and Tom Kim. I'm going with all my M's and Kims. So I'll make that simple. That's our good folks at Peachland Dental. Let's get to This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus USA Credit Union. This day, back in, I don't understand why this is doing this. I'm going to pull it up. Bear with me for a second. Every time I go to it, then it just deletes it. Kentucky Derby, I believe, is this weekend. We don't talk horse racing on here, but I know it's the best 2 minutes in sports. But in the 2021, the 147th running of the Kentucky Derby, Medina Spirit gives jockey John Velasquez his 4th Derby win and trainer Bob Baffert's record 7th victory in the race. I thought Bob Baffert was banned from there. What do I know about horse racing? Hope you enjoyed today's program. Really want to thank both Kevin Brockway and Heath Cline for joining us. We'll be here tomorrow, folks. Have a great day. Take care.